We got to get to a point where we are overcoming our shame. Okay, shame of our past, shame of our present, shame from things that have happened to us, shame from things that, we may have contributed to, right? Shame can come about as a result of our disobedience, right? We maybe went down a path, we made some decisions, got into some things, and we messed up. We made some decisions that could have changed the trajectory of our life, for the time being. And we're kind of sat with looking at where we're at, especially as a result of disobedience, right? And then there are things that we go through in life where, at the time, you were the victim. This wasn't supposed to happen, to you in that way. But it did happen. And so Google's definition of shame is a feeling of embarrassment or humiliation that arises from the perception of having done something dishonorable, immoral, or improper. So for those of you who feel like, I've messed up, right? God can't use me no more, or my life is just a mess, it's in shambles, or you might be looking at the pieces of what's left over where you're at, and you were like, wow, at this point in my life, I was up. I had all this money coming in, and I felt like the man, or I felt like I was this great woman, or whatever, however you viewed yourself, right? And you just haven't been that, right? You could probably look in the mirror and you don't feel like yourself. I remember just years ago, years and years ago, going through really dark seasons of my life, gaining so much weight, not being able to see, myself. I became like a shell within myself. And it's as a result of shame. So some synonyms of shame are confusion, right? So identity, like you can't look at yourself properly. You're looking at yourself and you're not seeing yourself. So you're confused about what you see. You're confused about your life, right? You're guilty. You're remorseful. It's a consequence at times of our sin. We might blame ourselves and feel like, what we did brought us to this place to now I can't get this monkey off my back of just, this mental battle that I'm feeling of just me versus me. Like, how did I allow myself to get this way? And so I'm going to bring y'all to Genesis 3, 8, and 10. Oh, I'm actually going to read 9 and 10. This is when Adam and Eve, they ate from the tree when they were told not to, right? They were disobedient to the Lord. It says, then the Lord God called to Adam and said to him, where are you? And so he said, I heard your voice in the garden and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. Okay. So they hid themselves from God because they knew that they messed up, right? They did the very thing that God told them not to do. They dishonored the Lord. And so what stuck out to me with this was Adam said, I heard your voice, right? He knew that God was calling him. He knew that God was tracking him. God was looking, to talk about what went down, what happened. And he said, I was afraid. So that right there tells me that this spirit of shame, it also works in tandem with the spirit of fear. So we know that sin separates us from God, but when we commit these sins, a consequence that we're discussing is shame, but it also puts this fear in us, right? To where we feel like God can't use us, or I can't even, God's not going to love me the same, or whatever it is that fear creates. So you might have a fear of starting over. You might have a fear of trying again. You might feel unworthy, right? It pretty much depletes your self-esteem. But the truth is, right, shame cannot hold you, right? Shame does not have any true authority over you unless you allow it. Okay, because the work has been completed at the cross, right? We have to get to understanding that. We can't walk around believing, that we are more than conquerors, that, everything that God has said about us, but we're allowing ourselves to be weighed down by shame. We're thinking, nobody would ever love me, for the things that I've gone through. Nobody will ever, people gonna come into my life and, they're gonna see parts of me that they like, but then they're just gonna discard me and throw me away like the rest. No, we can't walk around feeling that shame, of what happened to us or what, we got ourselves into. We got to break that stuff off of us, right? We got to understand the work, the finished work, right? At the cross, Jesus bore everything. right? All of that weakness, all of the shame, everything in his body. And it was put to death at the cross. And when he rose, we rose with him. So therefore, you now have the authority over the shame that is trying to take authority over you. You just have to believe in that. You have to walk in that, right? His name is the name that heals. His name is the name that saves, right? The work is finished. It's already done. So if we're right now examining that, you feel humiliated, you feel those thoughts ruminating, you got to take authority over your thoughts. You got to take authority over, how you think God views you, right? Or how you think other people, maybe you let your family down, right? Maybe you have younger siblings and they was looking up to you and now they're like, I don't know what happened to so-and-so, or people just know you from who you used to be and, you don't look the same, or, your life's not the same. You can't let that weigh you down, right? You have to take authority. And a part of that is believing, right? Believing what Jesus did for you. Believing since Jesus rose, I rise with him, right? Shame could not hold him, and therefore shame cannot hold you. So when we meditate on that, right, we know the truth about what has already been done for us. It takes away that humiliation. We start to look at ourselves not from the identity or the lens of what we did or how we messed up and how we disapprove or others disapprove of us, but we look at ourselves for how God sees us. And we can only do that when we start to strip. We got to allow God to remove that shame. And we be able to boast, right? I think that's in, Paul says that in the Bible, right? We'll boast in our infirmities, right? The things, that our weaknesses, the things that make us, seem weak, because we know that just allows Jesus to be the strength that we need in our lives, right? We know that in him, right? Without him, I can't do this, but with him, I can overcome. So I hope this message can help somebody. And I will see y'all.